because the Army keeps us free. You make us strong, and tonight you have made all Americans very proud.
As President Trump presides over the celebration of the U.S. Army's 250th anniversary, No Kings protests erupt in violence.
We just heard shots. Everyone's running.
I'm Daily Wire Executive Editor John Bickley with Georgia Howe. It's Monday, June 16th, and this is Morning Wire.
A political assassination triggers a massive manhunt in Minnesota.
Our state lost a great leader, and I lost the dearest of friends.
And as Israel and Iran trade blows, President Trump ratchets up the pressure on Tehran.
The Iranians right now have rejected this, and so we appear to be a standoff at the moment.
Thanks for waking up with Morning Wire. Stay tuned. We have the news you need to know.
When my sleep was off, it felt like I couldn't show up as my best self. I spent night after night tossing and turning, waking up exhausted, and making it hard to keep up with the latest headlines. That's when I found Beam's Dream Powder. Beam is proudly founded in America and run by people who share our values, hard work, integrity, and delivering results. It's a healthy nighttime blend packed with science-backed ingredients shown to improve sleep so you can wake up refreshed and ready to take on the day. And unlike other sleep aids, there's no next day grogginess, just great, restful sleep, because Dream is made with a powerful blend of all natural ingredients, reishi, magnesium, L-theanine, apigenin, and melatonin. I especially appreciate that Beam is an American company, both built and operated here, so a purchase supports hardworking Americans committed to doing things the right way. Here's the deal. Beam is giving our listeners the ultimate Patriot discount of up to 40% off. To get up to 40% off for a limited time, head over to shopbeam.com/wire and use code WIRE at checkout. That's shopbeam.com/wire and use code WIRE for up to 40% off. Sleep better, wake up stronger, and show up ready for your family, your work, and your country. Because when you're well rested, you're unstoppable. And this country needs more people like that.
Multiple rioters were arrested near Portland's ICE facility over the weekend after police declared Saturday night that a planned protest had devolved into a riot. The chaos in Portland, which left several officers injured, was part of a wave of anti-ICE and anti-Trump protests across the country that ended in violence. It all came over a weekend in which Trump held a huge celebration for the Army's 250th birthday.
Here to discuss is Daily Wire Deputy Managing Editor Tim Rice. Hey, Tim. So first, let's start with Portland. What exactly happened in Oregon?
Yeah, good morning, John. The situation in Portland really spun out of control Saturday night. The city allowed for one of these No Kings protests, which started around 1 p.m. and included tens of thousands of people. While city officials touted the event as a large-scale free speech gathering, eventually the focus of the protest became an ICE facility, and things got less about free speech and more about destruction and violence. Homeland Security Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin told Fox News Digital that the rioters broke glass and forcibly entered the ICE facility. During the attack, they threw rocks and launched fireworks and smoke grenades at federal law enforcement. Officials say at least 4 officers were injured, including a federal official. 4 rioters were eventually arrested for what the Portland Police Bureau stressed was, quote, violent activity. And they said in a press conference early Sunday that more may be rounded up.
When this becomes antagonistic and violent, I have rarely seen in my career and really throughout our nation's history a time where successful change has come as a result of violence.
Now, Portland was not the only city to see these No Kings protests devolve into violence, correct?
That's right. We saw yet more violence in Los Angeles, which has really become the epicenter of these protests and riots. Things got out of control enough over the weekend that law enforcement had to use tear gas and other crowd control measures to clear out rioters. Then there was Salt Lake City, where a No Kings protest ended up involving a shooting. Police there said Sunday that 3 people were taken into custody, including the shooting suspect, and that the motive was still being investigated. Then there was a No Kings protest in Culpeper, Virginia, where police say one person was struck by an SUV when a driver accelerated into a crowd of protesters. As the Associated Press highlights, in Philadelphia, protesters waved signs declaring, "Deport the mini Mussolinis and fight the oligarchy."
Now, these No Kings demonstrations were planned across the country in response to Trump holding that massive celebration of the U.S. Army. How did that event go?
You know, it was a rather remarkable contrast to the protests. The event marked the 250th anniversary of the founding of the Army, which came a year before the Declaration of Independence was signed. It also happened to coincide with Trump's 79th birthday, which the protesters, of course, made sure to focus on.
Right.
But what Americans saw was a huge patriotic display that highlighted the heroism of American troops throughout the decades. The event featured military vehicles from a wide span of eras, including old-school Jeeps, transports used in Korea and Vietnam, tanks, helicopters, and, of course, row after row of marching troops. All the while, Trump stood watching, frequently standing to salute the troops, and, of course, the president gave a speech in which he thanked the army and essentially said, it's about time we had a parade like this.
As we celebrate tonight, we also think of the hundreds of thousands of Army soldiers who have made the supreme sacrifice for our nation and selflessly laid down their lives in every war, from the revolution to the war on terror.
A final note, this weekend's celebration of the Army is just the first of many patriotic events that Trump called for in an executive order. That order created Task Force 250, which is coordinating a series of celebrations for the year leading up to the 250th anniversary of American independence on July 4th next year.
All right, so more to come and likely more protests too.
Probably.
Tim, thanks for reporting.
You bet.
If you run a small business, you know there's nothing small about it. Even the smallest decisions can feel massive. That's where Shopify comes in. Shopify is the e-commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world, from household names to brands that are just getting started. You can tackle all the important tasks all in one place, from inventory to payments to analytics and more. Even marketing becomes a breeze thanks to their built-in tools for running social media and email campaigns, helping you find new customers and keep them coming back. Plus, Shopify's global selling tools have you covered internationally in over 150 countries, and their award-winning point of sale connects your online and offline sales all in the same place. With an impressive 99.99 uptime and the highest converting checkout experience on the planet, you'll never miss another sale. That's the Shopify advantage. Get all the big stuff for your small business right with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period and start selling today at shopify.com/morningwire. Head over to shopify.com/morningwire. Again, that's shopify.com/morningwire.
The nation was rocked Saturday after a prominent Minnesota lawmaker and her spouse were gunned down in a politically motivated assassination.
Daily Wire senior editor Cabot Phillips is here to break it all down. So, Cabot, a really shocking crime in Minnesota. What do we know so far?
Yeah, just a horrifying scene. Early Saturday morning, Democrat State Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette were left in critical condition after being shot inside of their home. Police, fearing the crime was politically motivated, then proactively checked the homes of several other lawmakers, including Melissa Hortman, the top Democrat in the state house. When officers arrived, they found what appeared to be a police SUV with flashing blue lights in the driveway and a man dressed as a cop coming out of the house. That man immediately opened fire on police before ultimately running out the back door. When officers were able to finally search the home, they found Hortman and her husband dead. Chilling footage from a home security system showed a man dressed as an officer approaching the front door wearing a silicone lifelike mask. It was just very scary footage. Police say he used that disguise to convince his victims to open their doors.
It was knocking on the door and asking the person to come out, absolutely impersonating a police officer.
Now, immediately after those shootings, police issued a shelter-in-place order for a 3-mile radius surrounding the home. But again, the killer was able to escape the area on foot and make it to another car that he owned.
Now, what do we know so far about the suspect?
Well, authorities quickly identified 57-year-old Vance Bolter as the suspect. He's a Minnesotan with no past criminal history. Bolter had worked for a private security service that advertised a fleet of, quote, police-type vehicles. He presumably used one of those cars as well as other gear, including a tactical vest, during this attack. While Bolter escaped the crime scene, by Sunday afternoon, police had located his second vehicle. It was 50 miles southwest of Minneapolis in rural Sibley County. By 10 p.m. last night, he was in custody after being caught hiding out in a patch of woods.
Now, targeting multiple lawmakers suggests a political motive. Do we know anything else beyond that?
So police say a manifesto was found in Bolter's car, but they are not releasing it to the public, at least yet. They've simply said they're confident this was a politically motivated attack. Now, some are speculating he was motivated by a hatred of the Democratic Party. To that point, authorities say a list of 70 potential targets was found in his car. It reportedly included a number of prominent Democrats, along with abortion providers in the state. And the suspect's roommate told reporters he believed Bolter voted for Donald Trump, but was not aware of his views on state politics. But on the other side, there are plenty of indications that Bolter may have been on the left. First, police recovered a number of signs in his car that said, quote, "No Kings." Bolter also had ties to Governor Tim Walz, who appointed him to the governor's Workforce Development Board back in 2019. Previous Democratic Governor Mark Dayton appointed Bolter to the same position back in 2016 as well. And the timing of this crime may also be a clue. Just days before she was assassinated, Melissa Hortman had been the only Democrat to cross party lines and support a Republican budget measure that would cut off taxpayer-funded health care for illegal immigrants in the state. That move drew outrage from Democrats across Minnesota. Here she is just hours after that vote.
I did what leaders do. I stepped up and I got the job done for the people of Minnesota. I think some of them are pretty angry. I think that their job was to make folks who voted for that bill feel like crap.
So what appears to be yet another example of political violence. Remember, in the last year alone, we've seen Israeli diplomats murdered in Washington, a healthcare CEO assassinated, attacks on Tesla dealerships, the firebombing of the governor's mansion, and of course, the multiple attempts on Donald Trump's life.
Well, a tragedy and extremely chilling for those other people on the list. Cabot, thanks for reporting.
Absolutely.
Things have changed rapidly since Israel launched its attack on Iran on Thursday, and things will likely keep changing fast.
Joining us to discuss how we got here and where things might go is Jonathan Shanzer. He's the executive director of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies and a Middle East expert. He also joins us now from a bomb shelter in Jerusalem. Jonathan, thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Good to be with you.
Now, we covered on this show on Friday the many targets that Israel had hit. There had been more strikes since and counterstrikes from Iran. So what are the latest developments in the strikes and counterstrikes?
Sure. I mean, I think what we can say with certainty is that the Israelis have carried out, I think, more than 700 different strikes since this thing started. It's not even 72 hours old. Again, nuclear sites, military sites, leaders of the regime, and a lot more. There's been a lot of destruction on the Iranian side. On the Israeli side, they have been fending off missile attacks. These missiles have been coming in by the dozen over the last couple of nights. Just a few minutes ago, as I was sitting here in a shelter, there was a direct strike somewhere near the northern town of Haifa. That's the third largest city in Israel, and a fire had broken out. Last night, there were a couple of direct hits, destroying buildings, destroying a full half of one building or even a half of a city block in one case. I think, what we're looking at is a potential war of attrition if things go the way that Iran would like them to go. The regime understands that there's a finite number of missile defense interceptors that the Israelis can use. And they have a lot of ballistic missiles. So there's a little bit of cat and mouse here going on. The Israelis are trying to strike as many of those ballistic missiles as possible on the one hand, and the Iranians are trying to make the Israelis lose as many of their missile defense interceptors as possible. The one kind of wrinkle that I'm watching right now is that the U.S. is helping to defend the skies over Israel, and it appears that a number of Western countries may also be deploying assets to the region as well. There are actually even a couple of carrier strike groups on their way from the United States, maybe to try to impose a little bit of restraint on the part of the Iranian regime.
Now, we've had conflicting reports about U.S. involvement in this mission. What do you think is the real story? Has the U.S. been involved, and will we possibly get more involved in the days to come?
So, I think we need to understand something. First of all, Israel is striking Iran right now with a number of American platforms, F-35s, the MK-84 2,000-pound bombs that are under the wings of those F-35s, and a whole array of other platforms that are U.S.-made. Israel is part of the arsenal of democracy, as we call it. It is an American ally and has been for decades now. So no surprise there. I think there's also a high degree of intelligence sharing. We know this because it's been a fact for decades as well. But the fact that the Israelis attacked on day 61 after Donald Trump's 60-day deadline does suggest that there was some degree of coordination here. The big question that I think everyone is asking right now is whether the United States will get involved, because really, if the U.S. drops one or two massive ordnance penetrators on the Fordo nuclear facility, this is the one that is embedded deep inside a mountain with lots of reinforced concrete. The Israelis will basically be able to say it's game over, right? And basically, they don't have that platform. They don't have a B-2 that would be able to fly at the heights that are needed to drop that ordnance, and they don't have the ordnance. So I think they're looking for the U.S. to perhaps step in, I think, for that one piece of business. Everything else, the Israelis seem to be doing just fine with the help of American air defense.
Well, in the meantime, Trump continues to push for talks, so we'll see if that bears any fruit. Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us, and stay safe.
Anytime. My pleasure.
Thanks for waking up with us. And if you're watching us on YouTube, please like and subscribe. We'll be back later this evening with more news you need to know.